You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup, Young People in Politics, with me, Roisin Cllr.
And me, Paul Brophy.
And Paul, we have another interesting panel tonight. We have Thomas Hartigan, who is an independent Ireland County Councillor from Limerick. We also have William O'Leary from Cork. Gentlemen, you're both very, very welcome to the Young People in Politics.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, you know what? What is coming up? You're both two young men in politics. What are you hearing from other young people? Maybe why they're not getting involved in politics? Are they censoring themselves? What issue or what issues do you want being brought up and highlighted in politics? Or what do you just want to get the message out there? We'll start with you, Tommy.
Because the issues that we bring up, I suppose, will be across the board is your housing, your transport, your education, health, jobs. I mean, every second week there's a going away party for someone going to Oz or going to Canada or the likes. But the big issue that we've coming up at the moment is the disparity between urban and rural funding. Cities compared to counties, towns compared to villages. It's becoming a bigger issue as time goes by in terms of you could say, oh yeah, but sure they're talking about footpaths. No, it's projects that will facilitate growth in towns and villages to keep the western seaboard, as you suppose you could call it, from Donegal down to Cork and the rural areas in between viable for young people. I literally this evening on the way home, I stopped off with a friend who was from a local parish here, very passionate about his parish, was hell bent on going to be settling down in that parish. He's engaged to a primary school teacher, small primary school, would have been a job there for her. He's in recruitment, he can work from home. They had to buy a house inside in town because they couldn't get to what they wanted here in the countryside. And they felt like the fit was more there for them. But like the vicinity of that parish that I'm talking about compared to the infrastructure that would have made it ideal, as in you could have had two parallels basically. It just wasn't, it hasn't been put in place. And that's what the cost of building these days is ridiculous.
Yeah, definitely, Tommy. And I suppose you make a good point there as well about urban and rural funding. Having the infrastructure there is so important, in order to keep towns and parishes, viable. And Roisin, I'm sure you probably back me up on this. In the last number of months, we are definitely seeing how big an issue infrastructure is as regards, ensuring that rural towns and villages have a future. Like water infrastructure, that's massive. Like and now that's just one thing that that is impacting planning, and allowing young people to build homes in rural areas as well.
And two, young people are moving out of villages. Young people are moving out because, there is no new houses being built for them to raise their family. It's derelict or old buildings. My son bought an old cottage, but it's a one-bedroom cottage. If he used to have a farm, but he bought that because he was homeless really because he was in the defense forces. His landlord was selling up. So he
Mm.
went to the Lebanon and then he came and when he was over there, he bought the cottage. He loves it. There's a lot of work to be done, but it's livable and he's living in it and it's lovely and cozy. But there isn't the I think we've got a lot of political goodwill of talking out there about bringing people back to the communities and everything, but there's no infrastructure for young people to actually buy a house, build a house, or even stay within their communities. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I know the hog the beginning. Um, but it's even if a person manages to be fortunate enough to get themselves in a position where they can buy one of those houses that you're talking about, build, sometimes the planning regulations stop them. For example, I have one ongoing case at the moment. A gentleman living in a level four settlement wants to finish off a house that his sister started in 2009 before the crash. It got to four wall stage. Um, and long story short, because it's 2 kilometers when I was a child, I was 10 or 11. I did a backwards walk from right beside his house to the house he wants to build, and it was 2 kilometers exactly. And he can't get planning to finish off this house that his sister owns. Now there is roundabout ways, and we're going through it, but it shouldn't be that complicated for him to get planning on that.
And William, what are you finding about you're from Fermoy, so what is it? Is there any issues there with young people coming back to Fermoy or?
I suppose without being too negative, young people are fed up.
Yeah.
They're just fed up with all aspects of life. I mean, I know Tommy touched on the housing side of it there, and I spoke about it on here a couple of weeks ago with Paul. Like we have 2 major towns in my district. We'd have Fermoy, Mitchelstown, but then you'd have all your smaller villages, and in 3 or 4 of them you cannot build because of lack of services, wastewater, or whatever. So people are leaving places that they don't want to leave. You see school numbers dropping. You see GA clubs talking about amalgamating. I mean,
Yes.
the deaths of rural Ireland. I'm so worried now. Is it beyond repair? Years of mismanagement and lack of interest past Red Cow Roundabout seems to be the big thing. And look, Tommy spoke about the planning aspects of it. I mean, we're at a stage now where, for example, if you live in a rural area and you come from a farming family, the son, you might have 3 or 4 siblings in that family. The son who's taken over the farm might get planning. The other 3 won't.
Oh.
The other 3, yeah, it's gone that bad now down here. Because they call this ribbon development or overdevelopment in rural areas. So look, it's another 10 years. I despair to think of where rural Ireland will be. I mean, I'm dealing with a couple of schools that are losing teachers. And these are actually newly built schools in the last 20 years. And where they'll be in another 4 or 5 years, I really don't know. It's actually very sad watching it happen before you. All because of simple services can't be put in place. Wastewater is the big thing. It is the big thing, And we're actually lucky in Fermoy and Mitchelstown, or Fermoy in particular, that there is a lot of development going on, and I'm very pro development. And people say to me, it's becoming developed. It is in one sense, but look, the other thing I'll worry about that there is no this obsession with build, and we have to. We have to, but you'll see towns over the next 2 years going from, there's such an extensive building going on in Fermoy that you'll see a town of about 8,000 or 9,000 hitting 20,000 in the next 10 years, we'll say, right? And from a building point of view, that's good, but look, when you don't have the services growing with it, it's going to be it'll be a ticking time bomb in there, and I'm never objected to any housing development in my life. I never will. It's not good politics to do that, but you have to highlight what the future concerns might be as well. I mean, young people, yeah, they're fed up. They're getting hit from all angles. They're coming out of college. They're going into jobs. I mean, to start up a business now, like for a young person, you may as well be. You have to be a financial expert. You have to be an insurance expert. You have to be a health and safety expert. You have to be an expert at everything, and no one's an expert at everything. And they're expected to do that to set up either a small to medium sized business. They're looking into it. They're starting the process and half is through, and they're going, I can't handle this. In terms of young medical professionals who are to give this state credit in terms of medical your courses in college, where it's one of the best in Europe. We've one of some of the most highly qualified people coming out of it. Why can't we retain them? The minute.
Well, I can tell you that my daughter's a doctor. Studied in Cork, and they're all going off to Australia, and they're all paying. My daughter paid 10,000 euros to get her visa for 1 year. Now, thank God she came back because she got down in Cork. She got on one of the training schemes down there. But none of them's coming back. None of them are coming back.
And actually, there was a Vox Pop on RT Radio once, man. I don't usually listen to Radio 1, but I was stuck in traffic, so I had no choice. And they had a Vox Pop of young medical professionals over in Australia, and they're not coming back.
They're not coming back.
They are not coming back. There's no incentivization. If I was being really tough, I'd say, look, you're trained in the States. you should be retained in the state for 2 years minimum after qualification before you travel. I know traveling is a part of life. It's every young person is doing it. Not blaming, but I think they should be retained within the system for 2 years after they come out. But they're given no incentive to stay there. Absolutely nothing. They can't get accommodation. They're overworked. I mean, the big thing about that Vox Pop this morning with those people interviewed was the work-life balance. It wasn't even about money. They said, yeah, the standard of living is good, accommodation is easier to get, it's cheaper to get, but it's the work-life balance. I mean, that young lady who was from Cork was saying she's in at 7:30 in the morning, she's home at 3. She's the rest of the day to go about her daily business.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it's in its 7 and not getting home to 8.
I don't know, 2 different hospitals maybe, I don't know. But but we all know here they're overworked, underpaid,
Burnout.
burnt.
What I'm hearing is too from young medical professionals is my daughter says she can't afford a mortgage. She won't get a mortgage. She can't afford a mortgage with the cost of houses in Cork and to buy a house. She said that also she said they're saying that for them to come back, they're getting the same salary in Australia, would you believe, than what they would be getting here. But the cost of living,
there's no recognition of it. I mean, I'll just touch on a few things. I suppose the first thing is I've never seen a government like this to not be able to read the mood on the ground of the people.
Yeah.
They've lost the dress from here now a long time. I know there was just a general election last year. Look, they got back in, so be it. But their inability to read the mood out there at the moment is atrocious, especially amongst young people. I mean, young people are just forget it. Like they're at forget it stage now, because like they're not going to get out of home. They're probably earning too much to get on the social housing schemes. They're probably earning not enough to get a mortgage, and there's no in between there. I mean, over the last 5 years, you had these government announcements on housing, big fancy press conferences about first home loans, cost rental, a couple of other things. But as house prices rise, those schemes become useless and become redundant. It's just like there's no flexibility on price within those schemes. Price, they're going to keep rising. The schemes are more unattainable for people. But like I said, and I've touched on it here before, even the basic thing, even the most basic of things, young couple living at home and in the family home, they put a log cabin out the back. Over the last 10 years, they're nearly treated as criminals. You have planning enforcement down top. You have threats of court summonses. That was something that drove me insane, to be honest. Like simple, small, modular home out the back, out of sight, out of mind. It can give a couple of breathing space while they try and save for a new build or a mortgage, while having some bit of an independence. I mean, that's the independence has been taken off young people. And that's a serious, it's nearly a crime. Like, young people do not have independence because they can't get out of home. I'm sure everyone has a good home relationship with their parents, but I'm in this boat. I'm 35 and I cannot get out of home, and it does cause tension. Not that I've fallen out with anyone, but you're in their way,
and they're in your way.
yeah. So young people, young people have lost their independence. They can't, and even again, I would say college accommodation. I mean, part of growing up was that first. You're 18 years of age, you get out and do your leaving cert, you're going to get college accommodation. You're going to live it up a bit for 4 or 5 years. First time out of home. Young people can't do that anymore because college accommodation and that independence has been taken away from them. They're now traveling from home to college wherever they are in college. So they're getting hit from all angles, to be honest.
Yeah. And on the whole housing question, William, you were talking about all these different schemes, first home schemes, affordable home schemes.
Yeah.
It goes back to that question, Roisin, we asked there a few weeks ago. What is affordable housing? How do you define what an affordable house is? Like, you could ask that same question to 6 people and you get 6 different answers.
Yeah, I think the standard of what people want has definitely risen.
Yeah.
Compared to, say, our parents' generation, what their first time home would have looked like compared to. I was talking to a friend of mine there recently, and he was saying like when he built that, they were in the process of building the house, and once the roof and the windows went on, they had a gas hob inside in the kitchen, they had a tap out the back, and they had a bedroom, and they finished it as they went through it. Whereas now, like the carpets have to be down, the light fixtures have to be in, for a lot. But I think, to be honest, the housing issue goes further beyond just housing. Going back to what William said there about the independence, is that your ability to grow and develop relationships and start having kids, like there's people that aren't starting to have kids until their late 30s, early 40s, because
Right,
they're probably only in their own home for the last 3 or 4 years.
I'd want to up.
And
I'd want to hold it up.
Oh,
yeah, but like that then feeds
Yeah.
into the primary schools. I mean, I'm only thinking of our own GA club here, like the football team. The youngest would probably maybe, there might be 4 or 5, 21, 22, 23. Then you're looking at 25 to, well, we've one fellow, he's 42 and he's still playing. But like, there's only 4 on the panel of 30 that have kids. Whereas go back to the 90s, how many on a panel of 30 footballers between the ages of 25 and 40 would have had kids?
yeah.
And
It has a knock-on effect on the schools as well, because we were at a meeting there, Roisin, there a number of months back, and there was a good point made. If you want to see the kind of the how your village is, have a look at your under six teams, and if you can see a good spread of under sixes coming in to your GAA club, that's a sign that there's good, there's growth in the community. But I say even look at your under six intake is getting smaller and smaller, Tommy, I'd imagine.
yeah, it's ridiculous. The looking forward that you referred to there, William said about housing developments. You have to try and convince people to kind of look 10 years in advance, like, yeah, it might be a bit of an eyesore now, or might be a bit of a hindrance now, but think 10 years. I don't think that was a concept in the last 20 years in terms of politics. It was just get elected. There was no kind of forward talk putting in. There was, as time goes by, I hear more and more stories of predecessors that would have stopped certain things or gone against certain things. And you're kind of left scratching your head going, but that's after causing a problem for me now 20 years later. Well, did you not have the foresight? Did you not stop and think? I don't know, William, do you know when forward planning became a thing in the councils?
I suppose they always had county development plans,
I delegated office planning because they're, to be honest, I actually love talking to those fellas, fellas and ladies, to see what they're working on and see what way they project things going, because that's kind of, I didn't rather listen to them than listen to half the workshops we get, because when we're voting and making decisions and planning, we need to know what the forward planning office are looking at.
I mean, I mean, the instruction from central government now, like you saw the Taoiseach, come back a couple of months ago, where the Wicklow County Council were refusing to zone land, and he said, well, I'm going to step in and zone it for you. So there is this thing now, zone, like consideration to numbers is not taken into it, zone as much as you can. But like I said earlier, in much of these places where they're zoning, you can't build there because of the lack of width, It's like zoning bogland, and it's like zoning the part of the desert at the moment, because there's no prospect of building there. They've completely mismanaged, like they've put Irish Water in charge of fresh water and wastewater. The biggest mistake that was ever made in this country was taking the control of wastewater and fresh water off the local authorities and county councils. It was an absolute catastrophic mistake. I mean, local curators, they knew where the problems were, they could fix them. County councils and local authorities, although progress is slow with a lot of stuff they're doing, but I would say when they commit to doing something, they'll do it. In terms of they would once they're given the scope to do it and the finance to do it, they'll carry out any project. It might take them time, whereas you have these state agencies like TII and Irish Water, and they're over certain things, and they're full of bull, to be honest, and nothing is getting done. Whereas like when those roles were with the local authority, from from the 60s up until the early 90s, a bit later with Irish Water, things were getting done. They were getting done. I mean, like I listened to a thing there last week. People were critical of Bertie Ahern for obvious reasons. But when he was there, infrastructure was delivered. The M8 motorway from Cork to Dublin was delivered. The Lewis line in Dublin was delivered. The bypass from Dublin to Ward was delivered. Things were delivered. Obviously the crash came, but since we exited the bailout, we have zero ability to deliver infrastructure in this country, and the roles the local authorities had.
We got a whipping and a baiting from the IMF and the EU after the crash, and I think we're still governing as almost like beaten dogs, afraid to look up, afraid to think, and throwing the fact that we're looking for snails and frogs and stuff to get in the way too. On top of it, that probably wouldn't have been considered before. I mean, you look at the flood defences or the flood actions that should have been taken in Enniscorthy, my mother's home county, over a freshwater pearl.
I was to say we're the same. We're the same. My exact same. There was a flood defence scheme delivered there about 15 years ago, but it took 40 years. They do work, but it was the bloody pearl mussel that held it up as well.
I worked in New Zealand, Limerick before, and they have the crook and the hat that the old Bishop of Limerick used to wear. And I remember noticing that there was a lot of extra care taken with it. And I said, what's the story? And they said the pearls on it are freshwater pearls from the Shannon. And I said, all right. I said, I've never heard of them. And I live on the Shannon. And they're like, oh yeah, they're kind of pretty much gone. But I'm sorry, like, there has to be other ways. I mean, look abroad. Look at America. They put these issues in the way. But if you look at America, and I keep using America because in terms of wildlife conservation and preservation, they're probably one of the leading in the world in terms of what they do. Why can't we do it here? If it means putting a little bit of extra money aside and getting the floodwater defences done, as opposed to saying, sorry, lads, there's a muscle there, we can't do it.
It goes back to that thing. I would say that in the early 90s, we were good at delivering infrastructure, but a lot of the responsibility on delivering infrastructure, when it was delivered, was with the local authorities. I mean, they even took, not to be talking too much, they even took the bin collections off the local authorities. What happened when they did that? People were just dumping rubbish out in the countryside. They took the responsibility of anything meaningful away from the local authorities. And as slow as they were to deliver, they still got there. They still did it, But all these state agencies, TII, Irish Water, they're just, they won't deal with politicians. They just do not want to deal with us. We're like piece of poo at the end of their feet, like they just think we're muck. So that's, but people don't want to hear that thing. Like, we've a national route falling apart. Someone rings me, it's falling apart, and I would say, oh geez, that's the TII. And they'll go, what are you on about? They have no interest, and they're right too. Like, they're like, why they don't differentiate, and they shouldn't have to, But like
we did the contract signing for the Adair bypass, and two colleagues of mine now, Fine Gators, went over to talk to the boss in TII. And said, look, we have a few issues we'd like to discuss with you. And he turned around and he goes, which party are you with? He said, we're Fine Gael. So he pointed to a Fine Gael minister and he goes, you talk to him and he talks to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, the attitude of some of the higher ups. I'm trying to get a sign fixed here in Limerick. Lahal, the parish, their U was taken out of the sign. I hope some haven't jumped through because it's TI. But going back to what you said, William, when it was devolved, we're the least evolved local government in Europe, here in Ireland, with the worst. But back then, you said they were slow to get it done. But if you needed it sped up, or if it wasn't being done, you could walk into the office and point to the fella who's in charge. Whereas now we don't know. We're going through these customer services lines.
Yeah, it is crazy. Like, look, I'm not asking, but we're looking in Cork County Council that we have good staff, but they're not left do what they could do, being honest.
One of the directors were happy to have her, Patricia.
Oh, Patricia Liddy, yeah.
She's our roads director. A legend.
Yeah. Don't class up.
No.
But again, like local authority staff are genuinely good. And she was excellent with us. Wanted things done, tried to get things done. But again, like their hands are tied by these state agencies as well. Like, you see, one that affects us both is the Cork Limerick motorway. I mean, how long is that in the pipeline with? And that is so vital for the whole Western Corridor to get from Galway down to Cork. I mean, economically, it would open up a whole new. It would be a game changer, you know.
National government putting restraints on the likes of putting the cycle lanes at the side of it.
Yeah.
That's going to hold up things. Farmers are going to want to go to arbitration over the extra bit of ground that's been taken. Yeah. You're opening up what one of my colleagues, John O'Donoghue, was very worried about, and I have to agree with him, is that is a corridor for criminality that a guard can't get to. Yeah. You have a cycle lane that's going to go from Patrickswell and Roxborough down to Mallow.
Yeah, so they want, but you see, this is the thing now. They want, and any new infrastructure like that now, to draw down EU monies, you have to have some sort of greenage in the cycleway. So they want a cycleway next to it to get money, and it has to be put there. We got a bit of a road done. It was a national route. It was about 3 kilometres, and they widened the road, but they didn't get the money until they put a cycle lane next to it for 3 kilometres, and you're cycling to nowhere. You're just cycling. The only thing you can do at the end of it is turn back, go to where you came from. Like, they had to put it there, you know. Like, I mean, the hands of Eamon Ryan are still on all this. They're still on all this. Yeah, and I spoke.
Those 5 years, it's going to be so long lasting. It's going to outsee our careers.
Yeah. So, and I spoke to someone who would be not in the TIA, but would have a very good line into it, and it's going to take a long time to move away from that mind frame. I mean, his whole idea, like, was for every euro you spend on road maintenance, you have to spend 2 on cycle infrastructure. I mean, like, we still drive cars in this country, and we always will. You know, we are vehicular dependent. We always will be. I'd love to see this ideal world where you have darts and trains flying around the counties, but it's not going to happen. You know, it's pie in the sky. It's an ideal world, and we're never going to get there. So we need our cars and we need our roads, and that's the bottom line. You know,
the railway infrastructure and actually maintained it. Some of this. Yeah. I mean, we've a railway here that's after being redone now. It's a fine job done to it, like, but it had been left sit there for. I remember being a teenager. We used to walk the tracks. You could literally walk from every town in West Limerick on the railway tracks. But you'd want to bring a machete with you sometimes to get through the brambles and the bushes that were on it. They had to clear the whole thing, massive multi-million-euro project, to get it back up and run again less than 15 years after it closed. We have the village I'm living in here, Pallaskenry, is you'll probably find this strange now, William. We're green for wastewater, but we're amber for freshwater, which is very unusual for a rural village. But we're on a water scheme that we had our own scheme that supplied 4 parishes here. 2006 or 7. It finished, and we were hooked up to another one.
Yeah,
we had a boil water notice happening while the election was going on. It had been going on 12 months, and then I got in. It lasted about another 3 months after that. But one of the first questions I asked them when we went in was, bleach lock, can we shut the valve from the deal scheme and open up the bleach lock scheme again and get that, do whatever retrofitting, because we had no end date in sight. We didn't know when this was going to end. Yeah. And they would have taken 4,500 out of the 7,500 people affected out of the boil water notice. And they turned around and told me the roof caved in on that 10 years ago. The plant was still there, but it was covered in tile and rafter and plaster.
Yeah, but they're like, that's Irish water. If you had just a broken injury,
just maintain the stuff, because you never know. It's like you were saying there, you're involved in machinery. Like, you'll probably have a bit of machinery in the yard that you could have gotten rid of 10 years ago, like, but you still hold on to it, because on the off day that you need it, you might need it. Like,
but again, look, like, there's just no support mechanism for those villages and towns that where fresh water and wastewater are under pressure, like, you know. They Jesus, I saw something there a few weeks ago where, you know, they're on about maybe developer led. Like, if a developer went in to build 40 houses, he could have a type of a modular wastewater treatment system. Number one, and like they were delighted with themselves. Who's the minister? Brown. Delighted with themselves and jigging around the hall with the cameras and I'm like, one, this is something that should have happened 10 years ago. 2, you're good to announce, but how long is this going to take to implement? Do you know? Yes. It's not. I'd be surprised if it never happened. And if it does happen, then it'll be all on the condition if Irish Water signs off on it.
Yes.
And that's going to bring them back in. That's bringing the problem back into the problem they're trying to solve. Like, you know. So, yeah, we're. I don't know. Look, I'd love to be coming on to be more positive. Look, but like I said, it's everyone is finding it tough in terms of all aspects of life at the moment. You know.
Yeah.
Mm.
I know you've a full term more than me, but sometimes finding positivity is
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Or getting up in the morning and you know you have a full day. Like one day last Tuesday, now started at 8 o'clock, didn't finish till 11:10, and I actually sat down on the couch afterwards and I kind of scratched my head, going like, "What have I actually achieved today? Who has actually been helped by anything that I did today, other than making life harder for other people?"
Yeah.
You see, you can't. I think we went to after the Celtic Tiger and doing that, we went to a lot of toxic positivity where everybody was positive, 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 and now we're coming back to reality of what there is for young people, and you can't pretend to be positive when there is actually nothing to be positive about for young people, especially for your age group. As you mentioned, Thomas, I was smiling when you said that, when your mothers, and I'm probably the same age as your mothers, and I bought my first house. I was 23. We got secondhand furniture, and just the coal fire and secondhand furniture. Then we built a house, and we moved in. When we built a house, we moved in when the windows were in. And the whole house wasn't plastered. We put in a gas cooker. We had a generator, and things
Yeah.
like that.
I'm 26 in September. By the age of 26, both my parents had been married, living in this house for 18 months, and were expecting me.
Yeah.
I'm still in my childhood bedroom, sitting in a spare room at the moment, using it to have this Zoom call. I'm working 2 jobs. And I know people are going to say, "Oh, pity about you, you're working 2 jobs." But like, I've looked. Anything that is for sale is not affordable. And if it is affordable, the bank won't sign for it.
Yeah.
Because I've been evaluated as a single person, and you don't have the what is it? The lend is you quadruple your salary or quadruple your yearly salary with 10% of a deposit.
How can you live on that? Like how my son, he's a mortgage, and he budgets, and every cent of his salary is accounted for. And if anything goes wrong, anything that needs to be fixed or replaced,
Yeah.
or even a social life, and he's now in a relationship, and like, if anything goes wrong, it's unaffordable. And it's a very small mortgage he has, but he can't, it's unaffordable to live now or have a life. I was out 7 nights a week when I was younger. We could do it. We had a ball. We
Yeah.
had a ball. And I see younger people and I go, they're not having that young, good, even teenagers, they're not having that life or anybody over 20 just leaving college. And this is why I think we need the voice of the young people to come together, and if we can help in any way in this program, is to get you all talking and liaising with one another.
I have to agree, Roisin, that unfortunately you could have 5,000 of us in the Zoom call, but if nobody's going to listen, which seems to be the case. Come back to what you were saying there about people leaving school and are supposed to be having the time of their life. Go back to when you were 20. If you heard Paul's after getting into the guards, he's after passing out to Roisin's after becoming a nurse, William's after becoming a teacher. He said, "Sure, that's them sorted." They're laughing.
Yeah.
Not
And now everybody's going off.
Everyone's going off or they're not doing it. I mean, I'm only after having a conversation with a fella today. He was telling me that he works for a company that work at bringing in foreign medical professionals to work in nursing homes. And because of some EU directive that the Irish government made law, 64 of them are at risk of being deported in the next fortnight, and a further 350 to follow unless a derogation is granted, because of the 50-50 workforce in certain industries. Basically, it was brought in to stop industries exploiting cheap labour from abroad and not giving the jobs to Irish. But that's fine when an industry is oversubscribed with I suppose, Irish citizens that are qualified in that field, but we're not. And he said, he was saying this to me, and I was kind of sitting across the table looking at him going, talking to the wrong fella. There's 40 something ministers there. Their numbers are all online. Get onto them, because it's I can't get them to fund roads down here. I mean, I had a meeting with a principal there. Wasn't this week? Last Friday, I called into her, my old school principal. School is having to fundraise to buy land to build additional classrooms.
Yeah.
And they're one of the very few fortunate ones. But when a school whose staff are part of the Department of Education are coming to me looking for help fundraising to buy half an acre so they can build 2 new classrooms because they're oversubscribed. I've actually toured the school with her. It's scary to see. That school was freshly built when I went into it. And what was your staff room is now a autism class. What was the school library is an autism class. What used to be the strong room is now a resource class. The staff are eating their lunches in the main hall as you go in the front door. The wall outside the PE hall have had bookshelves put up, and the class library has been moved there. There was on it, the PE hall was being used as a classroom when I was there, and they're down to that much pressure. Now they've been taken away some of the rest of the days this week. So you have a principal who's trying to balance all that. Forward planning isn't informing her what the plans are. I ended up having to tell her that there was 8 houses going to be filled in the village, all with kids, in June. And she's having to make plans for next year. Then you throw in that there's a new housing development starting here in the village. Again, very lucky that it's happening. But you can't say that you're lucky unless everything's falling through. So I'm sitting there looking at this lady who's given her whole teaching career in the schools, working in the area, living in the area as well. She has classrooms coming out her ears. Kids, if there was an attic, they put a classroom in there to try and fit more kids in. She's trying to fundraise money to buy more land, to expand the school, to serve the local community and the children as rightly as they deserve. She's not being informed of developments that are happening that directly affect her. I mean, those 8, I think between the 8 houses, there's 24 kids. That's another classroom that she's going to have to comprehend with, and she didn't know about it until I told her today, just as a flippant comment that I passed. And then to throw down on top of it, she's having to fundraise land so that she can expand the school as well. Fundraise to buy land so she can expand the school as well.
It's total lack of joined up thinking. And
the threat of losing her SNAs as well. That was only paused for God knows how long. I mean, we obviously could freeze the clock at times, but like the clock eventually does run out. When are they going to give a permanent solution on that? Because that's just stress that she doesn't need to deal with. And that's just one school in one parish in the whole country.
But you're getting a lot of that now in terms of like where schools are looking to expand. You ought to go off and fundraise yourself, or if hospitals want to expand, go off and fundraise yourself. This is the worst story I've ever heard in my life. Going back there a couple of months ago, I don't know, did you know about it? I think this is Mayo, a long ways away from me, but nonetheless, there's a group called the Sunflower Children's Hospice, and they want to open. There's only one children's hospice in Ireland, which is in Dublin. They wanted one in the west of Ireland, obviously for families from Kerry up that western corridor to Mayo. And the minister turned up for the launch of the fundraising campaign. So they were going fundraising 14 million for a children's hospice with absolutely no input for the government. But the minister was there at the press conference to launch their fundraising campaign for a children's hospice. So if a government is not going to, 14 million is money, is a lot of money. But in terms of the government exchequer, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing. And this group who must be, I googled the story. I think it's Sunflower Children's Hospice Mayo. If you get a chance, it is shocking that this group have to go off and fundraise 14 million. And she comes down in the minister McNeil, and she's like, we will we'll collaborate with the working group. We look forward to working with you, but let you go off and fundraise 14 million for the children's hospice. I just that was one of the days I thought, what is the point?
It's crazy when you think about, because you see all this exchequer funds, surpluses, full employment, and also you made a very good point there earlier on about the cost of living. It was very convenient there were cost of living measures before the election, and after the election, all these cost of living measures have vanished. So
I had a conversation with woman on the phone today,
at a time when there's plenty of money, these things shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, she said the exact same thing about you just said there. So, when's it going to change? When are the people going to wake up? And I said, what was her name? Kim. I said, Kim, 2028, there'll be a nice budget for the council and the European elections. And I said, in 2029 or 2030, there'll be a nice budget. Sorry, 2029 there'll be a nice budget for the 2030 elections. I said they'll be bought off again, and people will plod along, and you'll vote for him because I voted for his father, and my father voted for his father. This, I'm actually, I shouldn't say it, and it's probably because long couple of weeks, but I've actually gone to the stage now. I'm going to paddle my own canoe, try and help as many people as I can until I either retire and get kicked out, because I personally am gone beyond the point of hoping that the next election will be the time that things are going to start turning around.
Look, we say that every election, but I think it's going to be hard to see as long as I don't even differentiate between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael now. FFG, as long as their numbers combine, as long as their numbers are combined together, they'll have enough to stay in power. That is the bottom line for the foreseeable future. But like people are fatigued from them. But the opposition, the main opposition, there's not an alternative there either. Like people are just sticking with the devil, they know. But like, as we choose, well, like, it's tough going. I'm a county councillor, look, and I said it a while ago. Sometimes we're expected to be social welfare experts, planning experts, architects, medical officers, and I'm none of the above. I'm only there to do my best and advise people the best I can. But what annoys me is, I rang a TD there and he never did anything about it. And my new answer is, well, we'll ring him back. Because like I know it's not popular to say, local councillors now are like sweeping brushes. They're going around sweeping up after some elected officials higher than us, and that are getting away with murder, that have their staff, have their offices, but the queries they get mightn't be sexy enough for them to deal with, to be honest. So it's back to us, the busy fools, as I call us, So I can get very frustrated that way,
And William, as you said, you ran in the general election in Cork East. You did very, very well. You got over 10% of first preferences, and you only missed out on the last seat by 300 votes. Do you think, when I said, like, if you had got elected, and Micheál Martin or Simon Harris had picked up the phone to, would you support a government? And do you think, what would I have liked to have?
It's a good question. I can honestly sit here and say no. It was something I wouldn't have done it. No, I'm so angry with them and bitter to a point. I have to get over it, but I am. But look, obviously, that was a question that was coming up at the doors. To me, like, what, like, if they did pick up the phone, would you have done it? I don't think I would have. I'm all into, like, a government is only as strong as the opposition that's there. And what made Fianna Fáil, people may have disagreed with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, all their lives, but what made them function some bit was one was an opposition against the other. And they hated each other. And people say, it is great to see the end of Civil War politics. No, it's not. Because if one was in opposition, by God, they were shouting and roaring across the dial at the other one to keep them on their toes, and that actually makes one perform better. That's gone.
Yeah.
That's gone.
Sean Lemass one time, what's the difference between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael? And he said, we're in and they're out.
Yeah.
So
when they're both in, like, there's a flatness there. They're gone, like, Fine Gael are in government since 2011. Like, Fianna Fáil effectively since 2016, because with this confidence and supply, they didn't have was the ministerial cars. They were effectively in government. So look, to answer that question straight, no, I wouldn't have, because I feel our opposition has been so weak and that you needed strong voices at the other side of the dial as well. Look, we all knew before the last election what the makeup of the government would be. We knew it was going to be Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, sadly, again, But I was definitely focused on someone who was elected, was to be a stronger voice at the other side, because we have lost that. We have a cohort of people doing it. I don't think Sinn Féin are doing it. They're living day to day by what happens, and they'll shout and roar about what happens on a given day. Look, I think there was some strong independence in the last opposition. In the last all, some of them have join government. That's their prerogative. I've no problem with that. It's up to them. But look, I know Independent Ireland are trying to do it. To be fair, I think A&2 are trying to do it. And you have one or two others trying to do it. Like, but the opposition has been really weak, and it's like that was like when they weren't. People might never vote for Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, but when they were at it with each other, they were at it, and by God, they were trying to get one up on each other. And that's competition. That's healthy competition that drives politicians on to do better. That drives, like, sure, Like if you're sitting across the dial there, like when Bertie Ahern or John Bruton are in opposition, they're dying to get across. They're dying to get across into the Taoiseach seat. What you have now is Simon Harris. He'll get there without even having an election. He can course his way in there. So that takes the edge off politics, it takes the edge off competition, and it just provides this complacency which has creeped into Irish politics and which it's going to be so hard to get rid of.
I have a
You ever see a
question.
day? Sorry, Roisin, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
A mad question. Do you ever see the day that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael might just say, "Look, we'll merge and become the one party"?
I think
Yeah.
If after wins the next election 2029,
Yeah.
if they're backing government in that stage, I think over the next 5 years after 2029, it's going to be very hard for them to not at least consider that as a possibility. Because
I think they need to wait for the Celtic Tiger politicians to be gone.
Yeah,
The ones that were in the Burkeys, they were the ministers, the junior ministers.
Yeah.
They're all gone, and you have the next generation, the 2011, 2016 election TDs.
Yeah.
Always kind of work together, and I suppose it's a bit like a film where you have two opposite sides. So it was that Dr. Seuss book where you had one crowd had dots and the other glad had stripes, and then after a while, then they kind of were looking at each other, going, "There's not much of a difference, really. Why are we bothering being separate?"
I believe me, I was in the party. I know the carry on. There is no difference, and like that's something I couldn't stomach.
Couldn't get over.
That's something I couldn't stomach. Could not stomach. The route that party was going down, it was effectively amalgamating into another party. I mean, like people say it's a simplistic analogy. I can't change the GA club I support. If they amalgamate with our nearest rivals, I'd be off. If I can't, I'm a Manchester United fan. If they amalgamate with Liverpool, I'd be off. You can see the reasoning, you can see the trend, and it just it's a sad sight nonsense, like it really is, because they were two strong institutions, like they were, like whether people liked them or not, they were strong, but
Do you think has the opposition, and when I say opposition, I'm talking Sinn Féin, Labour, the Social Democrats, people before prophets. Do you think have they become too ideology driven instead of local issues and national issues?
Oh God, yeah, and you can see that inside council chambers as well, with politicians from those groups, and the motions are very ideological, nationally driven, but like look, Sinn Féin councils are going to be told what to say anyway. But yeah, Social Democrats, Labour, as people find people on local authorities, don't get me wrong, but definitely driven by their ideology, by the national issue, which is important as well. But look, at the end of the day, we're local councillors, We
had a question on the triple lock there at the last full meeting. Condemnation it is, and condemnation. I'm sorry, lads. I want to condemn the potholes on the N69. I don't want to condemn an administration of a country I have never been to and never want to visit. And I'm not saying that is complacency or agreement with what is happening. There's some horrendous things happening in the world.
Absolutely.
But my abbreviation of my position comes before my name, not after it. So I want to worry about the local stuff and let the TDs that come out worry where their initials come after it. Let them worry about that type of stuff. Like when they can turn around, and I think they're more social revolutionaries or ideologists than actual political ideologists. They have this thing that they want society to change, and they want to do it via legislation, as opposed to the gradual movement of things. And I think that has happened in the last couple of referendums, where I suppose the marriage equality and the divorce one were gradual societal changes. But as that has happened, we've kind of seen the snowball effect of things are kind of being rammed through a lot quicker, and there's changes that are happening very, very quickly. And I think it's making a lot of people uncomfortable. And as for this idea of the united left,
they'll
kill each other.
They'll be fighting before the year's out. Before summer recess, they'll be fighting.
By-elections will be interesting to see. Will we see transfer packs? I don't think so.
And this is where Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have absolutely killed themselves. Why have they been pandering to the Sinn Féin, well, not the Social Democrats, Labour? Why they've been pandering to them now the last 15 years? Like in Ireland, what you have is you have the hard left, people before profit, etc. You have the left, Social Democrats and Labour, and you have the soft left, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. You don't even have the centre ground anymore. But it's this obsession with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael going after a vote, and that type of a socialist vote, liberal vote, that they're never going to get, but they seem obsessed with chasing, that they've lost all concept of who they are and what they're about, and, has, like, in terms of their own ideology, they've lost it from going after a vote that they are not going to get or ever going to get. Like,
they remind me of we've all seen them in our local areas. The local restaurant owner, the local publican. Things start to slip, and the food isn't as nice as it was. But they're still driving their Range Rover. They have their money made. They have the place paid for. And they're kind of going, well, if I keep opening the doors, people are going to keep coming in. So I'm not really bothered about your opinion. And that can only last for so long. But there's plenty of pubs and restaurants that should have been closed 20 years ago. But they're still plodding along. They're getting they're selling their food. The profit is coming in, however little. It doesn't really matter. So they're looked after. And I think what I can see happening is the only thing that could end up throwing the whole thing out of proportion is grassroots getting frustrated with what is happening at a national level, and you could see more splinter groups. I mean, if you look at home rule, basically every political party in the Republic of Ireland was home rule at one stage, and then it split into Sinn Féin, then it split into Sinn Féin, Cum Gael, and Fianna Fáil. Then Fianna Fáil split into the Progressive Democrats. Fine Gael, you had Renew, Sinn Féin, and you had Labour as well. Given to the respect that it deserved, Labour was there with home rule as well, and they've lasted the course. And you can almost draw a family tree the whole way down along. And I think that is where a lot of Irish politics suffer. And I know I'm part of a new party as well, so I can't exactly be lectured. But you can only dilute so much before you're kind of actually so. Brian Dobson said it there. I think it was the 2007, maybe the general election before that. Welcome to the era of rainbow governments in Ireland. There will never be. I don't ever see a majority unless some absolute catastrophe happens and one group manages to swoop in and be the scene and the need to come out of it. There will never be a majority government, a single party majority government. No. I think in my lifetime.
Yeah, and I have to hold my hands up as well and say, like, when I was cribbing them on about Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael going in with each other, plenty of my ex-colleagues were saying to me, well, what's your solution? Where do we go? And I don't know. I didn't know, which is I have to hold my hands up and say as well, do you know what I mean? I'd want to be pretending I had a solution to what they should have done. I didn't. But, like, again, I do think politics is very fragmented. I do think it's not even two-party governments anymore. You're going to be looking at 3, possibly 4 parties making up governments because, the days of parties getting 60, 70 seats is certainly it's not going to happen again, to be honest, So what the future makeup of Dáils are going to be, I don't know. I did say, in 2020, after that general election, because of the crisis the country was in with COVID, people were saying, I think it should have been an all-party government in 2020. Get us through COVID, go to the polls again, and see where we are. Politicians, will always say, people don't want elections. People want elections. Politicians don't want elections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that is the fact.
That's a good quote. Paul, write that down.
Yeah.
That's really good. People want to I like that.
Yeah. And you, like, if anyone, if the government's on the brink and get the lead up, people want stability. They want election. If things aren't going right, if it's not going right after a year, it's like any job. If things are not going right after a year on a job or 2 years in any walk of life, you're gone. You're out. So they'll come out and say, no, we are mandated for 5 years. People do not want elections. They don't want them. People, if things aren't going well, they want elections.
I be up in the door regularly. Sometimes twice a week. I've been going up, I go up at least. I'm not won't be up this week, but I always go and sit because there's always colleges, there's always schools up there. I always go and sit where the young people are because I want to hear what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Every week I go up, I hear them saying, "Oh, I don't know nothing about Irish politics. I know more about American politics than I know about Irish
Yes.
politics."
Yeah.
So how do we get the younger generation to focus on Irish politics?
But I think they are starting to focus on for the wrong reasons, particularly
Yes.
like an age from 20 to 30, because they're trying to make their way in life and they're realizing why things are so hard, and that's where they're getting involved in talking about politics, which what's wrong with politics rather than anything else, you know. So, you know, like you'd meet like if I went out and met my own friends who wouldn't be political, like they know what's going on, and like they're suffering like everyone else, and they're very politically tuned in, maybe apolitical in terms of who they support, but politically tuned in. I think people are, because if you go out and try and get them out, you don't get one. You find out very quick why you can't get one. You know, so they're kind of tuning into that, into the negative side of it, which is, you know, it is disappointing. Like, but sure, look, yeah.
One question I've always asked politicians when I meet them, and I've asked nearly all of them, is you're in government tomorrow. You can't be Taoiseach or Taoiseach, but you can have one ministry. What are you going to be minister of? And it can be a mixed match of two together, but I've always been interested to see what would your passion be for a ministry?
I would say justice.
Justice.
Yeah. I would.
And why?
Yeah.
Why?
I would love. I mean, just this whole. We've lost this whole concept of community policing. You know, look, I don't call me small-minded, but like, you know, the day, like in small areas, the guard in the area would have been a tough man, but he would have been involved in the J club. He would have been involved in the soccer club. He'd have been involved in everything. You know, and we've lost that community policing. We're upset. We need roads policing, obviously, to keep our roads safe. But we're gone obsessed with roads and figures and not, obviously we have to be because of the fatalities, but in terms of how many, you know, we need to get back down to the basics of community police and visibility. Like, so I'd love a crack off that. Another, I won't get into it here, but that department has other remits as well, which I'd like to get stuck into.
And Tommy, maybe we're going to ask you your own question. Which ministry would you like?
Parks as a junior ministry, or if it was a senior one, I'd like Home Affairs, but Home Affairs to include the Coast Guard, fire, the I suppose emergency planning. I think there's a lot of gaps to be left in that, and that's one thing that I think if I dove into it, I could be there for 20 years and I still wouldn't be happy with the work to be done. Obviously there's foreign affairs, and we love foreign affairs and the hype that goes with that one. But if you ask me for one now, tell me you're going to be stuck in this position for the next 20 years, bring in all kind of state agencies together and cancel out a lot of the waste that happens and the overlap, restructuring them into an efficient Ministry of Home Affairs, or Interior Affairs, I suppose you can call it.
Yeah. Like a Doge, and sorting out where all the waste is going. So,
I'd like to see Fire Brigade, Coast Guard, ambulance all kind of under the one remit, because I kind of left. I mean, they're a massive draw on local authority budgets, the Fire Brigade and those kind of things, and OPW, Cllr and Parks should all be under the one remit, in my own opinion. They do a lot of overlapping work, which I don't think.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I liked your question, Councillor Tommy Hartigan. Hartigan, and I liked your answer, William. I wouldn't have thought you would have wanted justice. So, look, isn't it good? That's a really good question.
And Roisin, what if you were a minister?
Minister for women and children. Just minister for women. I think we need, and I said that when I used to be on radio, and you knew that, Paul. You must have guessed and come up with that. When I was on local radio as a presenter and producer of my own woman-to-woman show, I used to say, what we need is a full ministry for women and for children, because everything that has happened in Ireland with women's health and with the children, from mother and baby homes to all the children being born with thalidomide, and all the sickness and the child trafficking and everything else, I think I would want a minister for women and children. And if then I wouldn't want to, I would love then to see, this is not what I'd be looking for. I'd love to see a separate, and which it should be a separate full department and minister for defence only as well.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and disability. If I was miss out on the justice portfolio to Tommy. If Michael Collins was teacher, I might get disability.
Yeah. That'd be. I think
Oh,
that would be one of the most rewarding ones.
yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, I would say we've had some good ministers for disability over the last few years, but they're junior ministers,
Yeah.
And they've tried their best, but it's just that in this, it's very hard to get to the bottom of it with the funding they have,
And Paul, if you were in politics and you wanted to be, now I have no political ambitions. I'm putting that no political ambitions. I've been asked too many times, and I've always said I gave a good Ulster said no to each time. So Paul, what would you do?
I would say, Roisin, definitely in the last number of months since we've been doing the county council caucus, I would be saying Department of Local Government, because I see the work that county
Yeah.
councillors do on the ground. I see how undervalued they are at times, and I see the scope that there is to do more things. And as you said, as you brought up TII and you brought up, a lot of those services could be integrated into the local authority, which would be make things, you'd hope, a little bit more efficient. But I think, yeah, that local government would certainly be one to be very interested in, or disability as well.
He's after
Well,
one up and you there with the councillors now, Roshi.
pardon?
He's after one upping you there with the councillors.
Uh,
Well, I have
Yeah.
no interest in going into politics. I love media and I love the background and I love, the whys and who's and the what's and the where. Pardon?
As a Minister for Media and Communications as well.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Jesus, you would have a lot in your hands of trying to manage RTE with that now.
I would disband RTE
Yeah.
and Virgin Media, and I would
Yeah.
have I would disband them,
Yeah.
and I would say that I would bring back balanced reporting and panel discussions as well.
Mm.
We will come up to the top of the hour now, and it's been a really, really interesting. I have been sitting in this chair going,
Yeah.
I could listen to you two all night, because you're coming up with exactly what you're the future. You are Ireland's future. And and that's what we need. We need the future. And you know what? We need the general public to know who all our young county councillors are. And we need other young people to be listening and watching and hearing what you're saying, so they become more politically aware and politically involved.
and hopefully the young county councillors will become UTDs in the future, and
Yeah,
that'll
I tried that
bring
trick, Paul.
sorry.
I tried that trick, Paul.
300 votes, it's
Sure,
I know you might say you'd rather be 300 ahead than 300 behind, but
I'd rather be 3,000 behind than 300 behind, to be honest as well.
We could be
But no.
interviewing the two of you up in the door one day. Wouldn't that be some crack? Wouldn't it?
Sure, we are.
But this is what we need, and we need to have these conversations. We need the country to know who all the county councillors are in every county, in every medicinal district. We need, because the county councillors, as I say on the county councillors caucus, you are the forgotten powerhouse of the political system, and young people are the future of politics.
yeah.
And it needs to be the young people standing up exactly with forward thinking and saying to the politicians who are often the door and have the power, this is what we want for our children, and this is what I want when in my 40s. We need that. We need to give you younger ones the voice, the platform, and that's what we're here for.
You see, and your boots on the ground as well.
Mm.
Yeah. Look, visibility is everything, So yeah. No, it's look, and thanks to yourself, Roisin and Paul, for highlighting the work we do. We don't get too much exposure.
That's what we're here for.
Look, it's look, you are getting around the place talking to different county councillors, so that is appreciated as well.
We need to get the county councillors' voices and opinions. You are the common sense. You know what's going on, what needs done, and what people are saying and what they need. I'd like to thank you both for taking your time out.
Thank you very
You're
much.
both county councillors. You're both working different jobs, 2 jobs, and running a business. We really appreciate it because we really do need to get the young people more involved and more interacting more with politics.
Yeah. Not too involved that they'll take our seats, though.
No.
Yeah. Want to nothing for my or
Yeah.
involved as much as you want.
It's
They can have
okay.
them.
It's
Other than
okay.
that, it's so good. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Thanks.
indeed, Councillor Tommy Hartigan and Councillor William O'Leary. It's
Thanks,
been a really lovely conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Kept
too.
me thinking throughout. What about you, Paul?
Yeah, I agree with you totally, Roisin. There was a really interesting conversation, and you made a great point there, William. And I did write down, Roisin. People want elections, politicians don't.
You know, and Tommy made a very good points as well. And Tommy, you always come up with a great one-liners, and you always come up with a common sense, and you always, the two of you do. You know, it's like this is what we need. We need you young county councillors meeting one another, talking to one another, and scheming and coming up with things for the younger people and for the young people within your communities.
Yeah.
Don't say I say scheming, but I'm going to put this up live.
Yeah.
Thank you so much indeed.
No.
Thank you.
Thanks, lads.